If you like what we do here, be sure to like and subscribe. Even support us on Patreon. Now let's go. That it's time. Again, Hopper Commander players. I never know how to do these, and I just pull up my big girl panties and buckle up. So, you see me, you see this man right here, the man, the myth, the legend, Dallas Puzzlebox. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. It's that time again. We just wrapped up the pre-show for the patrons. Please honor us by doing the thing. That's provided you want all that extra content. If you don't, it's cool. So we're here today to review quarter 1, 2025, and I've briefly taken a look at the report provided by Bodarnn, lovingly provided by Bodarnn through my harassment. God bless that guy. We're a little late. I think I've said that the last 3 times. We're about a week late. Dallas has jobs. Bodarnn has jobs. Clay has jobs. We're only a week late. But here we are. So fashionably late. So yeah, I've briefly looked at the report provided by the illustrious Bodarnn. I don't have any of it committed to memory. Dallas may or may not have peeked at it himself. So some of this stuff will likely be discovered in the moment. But that's kind of the fun of it, right? So,
absolutely. Yeah, I give it a little glance, but I don't go too in depth.
Because I don't want to, and I think the rhythm that you and I have established is that if it's too practiced, then it feels like we're selling something, and there's something meaningful in that honest to goodness, like in the moment realization and analysis. So, without further ado, let me put my big girl panties, out of a bunch, and let me hit the switch on the view. Boom, there we go. In front of you, you witness the same thing that you normally see, the blacked out screen with the white lettering of the cPDH.guide quarterly one first quarter report. Man, can we talk today? So I'm down at the TLDR.
Sounds good.
All right.
Gretchen.
I didn't even have a chance to. I didn't even have a chance to like do the softball thing. Okay. I think it bears. Every time I get to that quote, I always snap to the professor, because he always occasionally says it bears repetition, which is not a word, but like it's the professor, so he says whatever the hell he wants to say. It bears repeating that when I talk about like power rankings and stuff like that, Gretchen is usually a fixture in the power rankings. That is a known thing. Now, when I talk about those things, I hint at the fact that Gretchen is often potentially overrepresented in the power rankings in that data. Now, we've had a number of months now where we've had our beloved Dallas here say, Gretchen, Gretchen. So this makes me think, like, offhand, that maybe I should stop talking about this potential for overrepresentation for Gretchen in the power rankings, because quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter, we've seen Gretchen in this meta configuration category, whatever, right? So I don't know. Do you think I'm appropriate in my abandonment of this over representation topic?
I mean, in terms of representation, it's hard to say. I think it's pretty easy to say Gretchen is good at this point. It's stayed in meta for this long, meaning it's been like higher win rate than expected. And when it's done that for this long, I think it's pretty hard to say Gretchen isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
As to its representation in power level on power rankings and things like that, I don't know. It could still be overrepresented. It could be overhyped. It might just be a bit above average. I personally don't think so. But, you know, it's hard to say on that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at baseline, we could say Gretchen good.
Yeah, 100%. If you want, and at this point, I think just off the top of my head, I think there's been 6 or 7 different players who have submitted a Gretchen deck list to a organized event, and my dogs are going crazy for whatever reason. So I don't know if that's audible. Stop it.
A little bit.
But
your dogs.
But yeah, I think we've had 6 or 7 players registered in events with Gretchen over the last, couple of years, 18 months, couple of years. And so there is some performance variation based on player, but there's also performance variation based on pod composition, time of the year, like there's all these variables. So kind of reiterating what Dallas was saying is that even through this variation, player, location, online, in person, like all of these variables, Gretchen has remained, top tier. Okay. So, I mean, to that point, so I have softened lightly on my use of tier language, and the reason why I have is because when I talk about tier, I talk about tier from the perspective of performance, not because I feel any kind of freaking way about a particular thing or that I'm trying to sell something or what have you. It's because I've also had my friend, Dallas whispering in my ear once a quarter when we get to this part of the metadata about Gretchen being good. And, well, you're not wrong. So, success. It only took you 2 years. We did it.
We got there.
We did it. So, I mean, if we had... No, I'm not going to ascribe a, tier 1, tier 2, S tier, whatever. But top tier, Gretchen is top tier, top shelf. If you're talking about a whiskey or something like that, single barrel, aged 18 years, we're doing good, here. So, all right. I guess the spiciness comes into the went from off meta to meta. That's where some of the spice.
It's a big list.
It's a really big list. That the reason why that's a big list is because 127 games were recorded this quarter. This is a lot of games, and by and large, a good percentage of those games are attributed to this year-long league that is being hosted by Ginger, who is the top 4 third place participant in an earlier sanctuary this year with Bilbo. If you remember the Bilbo deck, then you'll remember Ginger. Ginger is the one that's hosting the year-long cPDH league. I've worked out an agreement with them to supply me with data, once a month or so that way we can backfill the ongoings and happenings for what they're doing down there, and that was included here, and you're going to see it represented throughout. So they're making a big impact. I want to say it was like 30 games, so it would be a large.
A lot.
Yeah, so it would be equivalent to an extra large tournament. So an extra rags to riches our Riches to Rags tournament was worths of data was injected into the data this quarter. So think about it in context of that. So you want to take it away? Anything surprising in the off meta to meta?
I mean, there's one that stands out as surprising, which is Furnace Hellkite to me. The rest of these, I think, have shown that they've got a place to play. Disciple of Deceit is one that I've been on and off of a lot in terms of like how strong it is. I think it's awkward and complicated and difficult, but I do think it's strong. Heartfire Hero is a fairly new base to competitive that's been showing it's got some gas behind it. Xiaojun, another actual new card that has been putting in work. I think that card's bonkers. TPI, Zada, Weavers, Abdel.
So Abdel Red.
Seen around. But yeah, Abdel Red has seen fringe play over like the last year, I'd say. It's seen a lot of talk, but not as much play. So it's cool to see it actually performing, because I do think it's solid. But yeah, Furnace Hellkite is like the big one that's like, what even is this card? You might not know what this card is.
Type it into Scryfall right now. Familiarize yourself, because you're going to see more of this. I'm quite sure you're going to see more of this in the data in the following months. So I've already harassed Ginger to have their deck list ready. And this is your cue, buddy. So when people come asking, he'll supply it. So no, when I look at the off meta to meta, I concur that there's Furnace Hellkite is the one thing that I wouldn't expect to see. Like, I'm looking at it and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Azada Stein has put a lot of work into that, revising that list over the last year. Heartfire Hero, Sir Carson's been playing the absolute hell out of that and grinding. The few people that are on Disciple of Deceit, I have seen so many approaches. I've seen 3 different approaches to how that deck's being built in the last 6 months. So just, I know they're not in a clubhouse together and comparing notes, but it almost feels like they're in a clubhouse together and going like, okay, you're going to do this strategy. I'm going to try this, and we're going to see what we're going to get out of it. Because everybody seemingly came out of the woodwork playing Disciple of Deceit at the same time. Xiaojun, I mean, that's Dave Alcadron Vader right there. All him. TPI, that's largely, it's been some Ryan, but it's largely been Ross Berkowitz, who, surprise, is our top performing player for the quarter. At least I think that's the case. If my memory serves me correctly, I think that's the case. Abdel Street and Furnace Hellkite are 2 outliers, unknowns. Trying to not besmirch, but also describe that, really not on my particular radar based on what I've been seeing. But I'm happy to see that they're in the now in the meta category. Whether they can stay, right? That's the goal. Who's the next Gretchen, right?
Yeah, no, I to that front, looking at from meta to off meta, I had so much hope for Hollow Marauder to have a chance to stick through in the meta category for a few reports.
Yeah, and so looking at this list, just to provide some clarity for those of you who haven't been participating in a bunch of events or who, are in the scene or what have you, Hollow Marauder has kind of fallen off in popularity. So it's still around in more casual games, but after Ryan ruined it for everybody, he won 2 back-to-back, and then everybody tried to copy him, and they, by that time the meta adjusted and figured out that if you just kind of hold down Hollow Marauder in very specific places, they're going to perform not as well. And I think after taking those L's, me being one of them, players just kind of pivoted away from it. So I think Hollow Marauder's in a cooldown period. People are waiting for Hollow Marauder to be forgotten a little bit, and then I think it'll come back. Gut, on the other hand, Arabella, Mystic Enforcer, the last four actually, Abdel, Iron Throne, those have seen sustained play over the last quarter, and they just have not performed. Simply.
Yeah, I mean, I think those three of those four specifically, I just have issues with, like, on a power level basis. I'm not a big fan of them. I expect those to be more like
which ones, Puzzle?
So Gut, Umbrella, and Mystic Enforcer I see as more like meta calls. I don't think they're as strong on a base level as Abdel or Hollow Marauder. I think those cards are stronger in a vacuum, and the decks perform better. I think like the super aggro stuff with Gut and Umbrella are more meta calls, and we'll see what's been happening to the meta further down in here. But Mystic Enforcer is played by one person.
Yeah.
So, like, and it's going to have meta fluctuation, right?
I think Adam would agree with you. Adam is the one who, BeachBodGod is the one that plays the Mystic Enforcer. Here recently, he has been experimenting, if not just in research only, in Wilson Far Traveler and looking at some Satyr Enchanter list. And discussions that I've had with him, we've talked about Mystic Enforcer, Satyr Enchanter, and Wilson Far Traveler as being kind of part of the same genre. Each one of them provides their own little, little niche to that particular, sub archetype, kind of thing. So I think he would agree with you in the fact that Mystic Enforcer does have somewhat of a meta thing that it's looking to fit into. I couldn't describe that to you, whether or not it prefers more of a controlling, more of an aggro, more of a combo. If I would suspect it to be more of a combo killer, and I can't confirm this until later on down in the sheet. But if we have less combo or less, then there's a likelihood that that vacuum would allow Mystic Enforcer not to, if there's more aggro or more control, Mystic Enforcer is going to suffer. That's what I'm trying to say. So.
But yeah, like, I think Abdel Iron Throne has a higher base power level, but it's still not like absurdly high. I think the deck's good, but yeah, I mean, Abdel's just a strong card, right? Like, it's hard to argue against that.
And Abdel, regardless of flavor, this is Clay's hot take regarding Abdel. Regardless of flavor of Abdel, nothing changes the focal point from Abdel. Abdel is always the focal point. So, Abdel generally has a weakness, and that weakness doesn't change based on, what splash you have. So, yeah. So what do you make of this? Each archetype's performance was between +5 and -5.
I mean, that's pretty cool to see, right? Like, meta evening out is nice. I think that's healthy, obviously. Although
balance,
healthy is subjective, yada yada yada.
Fair, yeah.
But a margin of 5%, plus or minus, is pretty good. I would say, not feeling like you're completely out of it just because your selected archetype of choice is completely unviable is a good indicator to me.
Perfect. So as we scroll down, we get into the typical FAQs that Bodarnn provides. As always, this report is available in the description of this video. I'll briefly cover that for this particular meta, the cutoff was 8 games. That's probably the high point for that. Popularity He goes into examples, what he means and how he's describing that. The same thing with performance. Same with performance, now that we're at the introduction. So, and there's nothing, outside of the fact that we say it almost every time, it's all statistical and not probabilistic. So if you're looking for us to tell you exactly what you should be playing, anecdotally, we might be favorable on like a Gretchen or something like that. But in reality, the goal here is to illustrate, the trends of what we're observing in the previous quarter, yada, yada, yada. I feel like I should have like a ticker tape banner or something like that going across,
Not a financial advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, make your own decisions based on the data we're presenting you. Even if we tell you our preference, it is a preference. Don't put your stocks in Gretchen if you don't like Gretchen. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, more importantly, if you don't know how to play Gretchen, don't put your stocks in Gretchen. Because I've discovered this recently. I put together Bobby's Gretchen list, and parts of that deck just make my head hurt. So, like, I'm a Weavers player, right? I mean, you think there's an overlap.
Yeah, it's amazing how different those two decks are, but that's a different video.
We had 127 games in quarter one. In quarter four, there was only 51 games. That's not necessarily such a bad, thing, because the wintertime usually slows down leading up to the holidays. People doing, family stuff. Oh no. And not playing PDH. I think that was a little bit lightly exacerbated by the fact that Bobby, then owner of the Sanctuary, decided to do a dual commander, Pauper Commander tournament instead of a regular one. Don't worry, buddy. I get tired of us too. But this is expected. We're going to have a drop off in the wintertime leading up to the spring, and then the spring report's going to be much more. So, of the meta commanders that we mentioned earlier, Bodarnn's got a nice little graphic here that outlines, the number of games, their win rate, and then does a nice little comparison between what their performance was in the preceding quarter, if those decks were in the preceding quarter. I always find this portion of his analysis enlightening, because, for Gretchen, you can see that, okay, in quarter four, I know we do a lot of in fact, I'm going to put Gretchen on the frickin' thumbnail. I know we put a lot of conversation into Gretchen, but I mean, we had 7 games in quarter four with a 27.3% win rate. And then that steps up, to 21 games in this quarter with a 28.6. So even with more games represented, there was a step up in performance. So,
yeah, it's usually one of, if not the most played deck, pretty much every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So it being here consistently says something, right? Even if it's not like the super high win rate like Weavers had, it's just consistently at least like 25, 30%, somewhere in there.
So yeah, you highlighted something that I was going to bring up next, in the fact that what we often see in these quarterlies is that you'll have a standout. In this case, it's Laylor Weaver, who actually did poorly at the end of last year. But you'll see this standout at 43.8% win rate. That's somewhat absurd in its representation, especially when you look at the comparative. Like if I were to ask you, Okay, Dallas, for 1 quarter, would you rather have, oh no, would you rather have 1 quarter's worth of performance at 43.8%, or would you like to have 6 consecutive quarters of performance at 25 to 28%? Which would you rather have?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely taking the 6, right? Like, assuming, like, even if those are like direct representation of your win rates in events, your odds are a lot better at doing good at an event if you get 6, 12 events. Maybe there's 2 events you play in per quarter. You play 12 events with a deck that has a 26, 28% win rate. Odds are a lot better of you topping one of those events than if you play your 43% win rate for 1 quarter, because that means you get a shot at 2 of them.
Yep.
Effectively, when you're good in the meta. Now, if you're able to identify what those decks are before the data comes out and before you know, and you're able to play that deck that has the 40% win rate at every event and play it well, absolutely go for that. But that takes a lot of understanding of the meta, every archetype, card pool for every deck. Like, it's a lot of work. It can be done. I'm not saying don't try to play the meta.
But sometimes it doesn't work out. Bobby and I played both Laylor in a tournament in this quarter. He had apparently better matchups than I did, or played incrementally better than I did, or like any number of these little factors, so in that instance, you could be a Bobby or you could be me playing Laylor. Now, I had success. I made it to a top 4, but I didn't have the same record. So, yeah, there's all these like little considerations. And I mean, quite honestly, I knew people are aware of Laylor Weaver, but I don't think they were prepared for how fast Laylor we both. I mean, our first rounds were 4 turns, like,
yeah,
for both of us. And I know that was my goal going into that tournament. That was his goal after talking to him going into that tournament. So what I'm getting at is that I feel that a 43.8% win rate on the quarter for Laylor Weaver is appropriate in environments where the meta, that's all of you, are not prepared for it. Now, getting back to the Hollow Marauder point, am I going to be playing Laylor Weaver this next quarter? Probably not, because I want you to forget about it. I might pick up Hollow Marauder.
Yeah, like decks dropping out of the meta for X amount of time and make them stronger. Not being ready for a deck does make it significantly harder to beat. And at the end of the day, we have a very limited card pool, and we're playing Singleton and 99, 98 card decks. You're not going to have the answer in your deck every time. You're not going to see it every time. And you cannot prepare for everything that could possibly be thrown at you. So, yeah, like knowing the meta and knowing what has been meta are both strong considerations when building your deck and choosing what you're actually bringing in the first place.
100. So moving away from the meta commanders, is there anything else notable within the meta commanders? I know we talked briefly about Furnace Hellkite. There's an opportunity to kind of point out that 16 games at 31%. Respectable.
Yeah, pretty sure it's all one person.
Yeah.
All ginger, but...
all ginger.
Yeah, getting in 16 games in a quarter with the deck is nice. So that's league play for you right there.
So getting into the off meta commanders, so Skirmish Rhino on this list is an anomaly because it technically really wasn't legal and otherwise eligible to play unless it was made legal and eligible to play for a particular tournament. So the fact that it has, a record here is definitely an anomaly, but it's potentially a forecast, right?
Yeah, I do want to talk about that one at some point here.
Absolutely. So what I find surprising on this particular list is, so there's Alexios. So I'm gonna give Arabella some flowers. I'm traditionally hard on Arabella because, well, in the vernacular, Arabella is talked about one way, but in the data, it expresses itself in another way. So people talk about Arabella, ooh, aggro, ooh, damage, ooh, like it's like this proactive, like forceful thing. But in the data, it shows up as mid-range. It shows up as late game. It shows up as, it shows up like completely different. So I have a difficult time with Arabella because I want to believe what I hear about it, but I don't, it doesn't appear to be doing the thing that I hear about it. So it's really interesting or difficult to have a relationship with it.
That's an interesting one. I've only played against the deck a couple times. I haven't seen it very often.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, the card itself does a very powerful thing when it gets to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it requires a lot of synergy with some not amazing cards that you have to play in the 99 to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the haste issue because it itself has to swing. And it dies to more removal because it's an artifact. And like, there's so many small issues with it that stack up that make it a lot harder to do the aggro thing at the speed the other aggro decks do them.
Mm-hmm. So is it an aggro deck?
I mean, I don't know. What turn is it, like, trying to win the game? My question. Like, how often are you able to put in enough artifacts that actually matter? Or put up enough bodies that actually matter,
bodies.
Like, able to win the game on, like, turn 5, right?
Well, I know that the pivot, just hearing in discussion and referencing lists, the earlier lists were playing like kobolds and ornithopters and things of that nature. I know that for board wipe purposes, a lot of that has been transitioned away to things with larger butts and more resilient to board wipes. But still, there's a consequence in mana value related to those things.
It's like transitioning out of the aggro game plan, because to me, aggro is all in. You are winning at the time you expect to win, or you are losing that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's aggro. I don't know what to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even Dargo, like, that's a massive body, but if you're playing the aggro builds, you're probably not going to win the game if the game takes longer than 6 turns. I don't know what to tell you.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, not to. I know it sounds like we're poo-pooing the Arabella. That's not necessarily the case. Obviously, Arabella deserves her rightfully earned position in the off-meta bracket. It's an anomaly. An enigma, rather.
Of mentality.
It's an enigma to me because I see it doing something different than what it's touted as doing. Now, these other lists, like I've played against more gut inspiring leader this quarter than I ever care to. So there's been a lot of gut going around. 22 games. I think that's 3 different players playing that. Let's see. We've got Arami is interesting. Alexios is interesting. Finn. I know that certain people are spinning around in circles in their chair because Finn the Fangbearer is listed on this. Did you know, Dallas, that Finn the Fangbearer is listed as the most popular commander on PDH Rec?
I did know that. I've played a lot of games against this deck. I have thoughts about this deck that I will not express.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, no,
but I think they are well represented by this data.
Yeah. So, yeah. 100%. Yeah. So, seeing Conrad in the data makes me feel a certain kind of thing. I know Aaron has been trying to tweak and tone and what have you. I personally am having, and this is something I've talked about the last 2 weeks in like Sanctuary water cooler chats. I'm personally having a conundrum, an internal debate on like my current Sir Conrad strategy and what Hala Marauder is trying to do. And frankly, my gut feeling is that Hala Marauder just does that strategy better. So what does that mean for Sir Conrad? I mean, does that mean that we just necessarily need to pivot off of the control strategy and move into something else? I don't know, but that's just my not that I'm the end all be all on Sir Conrad. Obviously, for transparency's sake, anytime Conrad has shown up favorably in this data, it's largely because of the efforts of what Aaron has been doing. But, you know, just still anecdotally in my experience, the difference between the 99 of Conrad and the 99 of Hala Marauder can sometimes be the same thing. And for what it's worth.
Monocolor decks tend to have a lot of that in our format anyways. So.
Especially monocolor control decks. Yeah. So yeah, what stands out to you? I see there's a Beam Splitter Mage.
Yeah, the three I want to talk about are Beam Splitter, Skirmish Rhino, and Hutzel.
Mm-hmm.
So Beam Splitter, I think, is really notable to talk about here because Zada did well, right? This is mini Zada that only gets to copy once whenever you're targeting it, but it gives you access to blue, and it's a mana cheaper. So your 99 can be way better in like a card value aspect because you gain access to debatably one of the better colors in our format, but blue strong. No matter what color you're getting access to, though, you're getting access to a whole nother second card pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's value added there. The CMC drop is really nice for being more like proactive and less explosive. You're just casting your Beam Splitter on 3 and then trying to get value off of your incremental spells instead of Zada where, you know, you're waiting till turn 4, 5, 6 to drop Zada and spells at the same time and just win the game on the spot. So it's interesting that Zada performed so much better than Beam Splitter has this quarter. Maybe potentially indicating that the explosive nature of Zada is worth the extra mana and not having access to blue at all, because the ceiling on Zada's effect is so much higher than Beam Splitter, right?
Yeah, and I know that so I recently put together my own Zada list as well. I've gone back to the origins of Zada and am trying to construct a 100% like ritually stormy type deck. The reason why I bring that up, so I recognize that I talk about a lot about my own actions here in this particular episode. The reason why I want to point that out is because what that exercise has done is, because I'm referencing Stein's list, and Stein is obviously the person represented by this data. There are a lot of tweaks off of the pure storm list that Stein has made that seek to make the deck a little bit more mid-rangey. So you have all of the prowess type creatures, Kiln Fiend, what have you. So that way, in the absence of Zada, you can still spell sling and put through combat damage. So I'm not done testing my air quotes turbo storm list yet, but it's made me have an appreciation of the difference of what Stein is trying to do, and maybe that will seek to explain, maybe some current success based on previous success. Because I'm looking at an older version of the deck, and he's operating on this more mid-rangey, resilient, less early explosive version, right? So offering up some flowers there on Zada's name. So as far as go ahead, buddy.
Oh, God, continue. I was going to move on, but if you got more, go ahead.
Well, as far as Kutzel is concerned, Kutzel is always an interesting. It's one of those decks that's theoretically stimulating, but in practice, it's kind of odd. I wouldn't say that it's difficult to pull off. Obviously, it has some sort of record in the data, but it's an odd duck that is theoretically enticing. So it draws a lot of players going, if I buy her a mocha chocolate coffee, I can fix her, that sort of thing. And, well, good luck.
Yeah, I really think, unironically, the issue with Kutzel is that it is a combo deck. Or, it wants to be a combo deck. That's when the effect of Kutzel is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Grand Abolisher is insane when you're winning the game on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
When you're using it to protect your creatures during your combat, so you don't lose to combat tricks in a format where no one plays combat tricks, it's pretty irrelevant. The card draw is nice, but I think if we get a good Selesnya combo in our format, there's potential for this deck to start doing something.
Mm.
But
you said a good, something came to mind, but you said a good Selesnya combo.
Yeah, no, I've tried combo Kutzel. I've tried it.
Mm.
It's bad. It's way worse than the combat versions.
Mm.
So we need a good combo.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're already in colors that are difficult to tutor for pieces. Playing combo pieces that are, difficult to draw into because of the colors that you're playing. It's just the combat versions are more consistent and synergistic. So
yeah, I think the combat versions are better than the combo versions, but I don't think the combat versions will perform at the moment. I just don't think we have good enough threats that synergize well, and the Grand Abolisher effect is not as relevant.
So looking in the other notable commanders, always got to shout out my man BeachBodGod for Mystic Enforcer, the one guy who's been championing that deck. And I know it's a little bit of a meme that we shout him out, but quite honestly, we should endeavor to have more players who are faithful, monogamous, as it were, to their girl. He hasn't had a couple of. He's performed at or above the 25% rate. So that's not nothing, but yeah, he's a champion, and I definitely appreciate him. The Abdel Iron Throne is represented by at least 3 players that I can think of. Over the last, to include both quarter 1 and quarter 4 of last year, it's roughly the same 3 players that are, 2 to 3 players represented in the data there. As we mentioned earlier, Abdel, gotta do Abdel things. So if you're going to interact, you just wait for Abdel. So, okay, popularity of archetypes. This is where we start to have a little bit of fun, usually at the expense of mid-range. So mid-range had an increased performance or popularity.
No.
Popularity. The other P word, yes, had an increased popularity, and I see there's a spelling mistake there. We'll go ahead and fix that right. Gotta click on the thing. Did you mean popularity? Yes, I did mean popularity. So an increased level of popularity by 2 points. Combo stayed roughly about the same. There was a decrease in aggro. Pretty significant, and it's almost like those aggro players switch to control.
Yeah, and I think these numbers specifically will get more interesting as we get a little bit further down the table to the turns. But. Yes,
100%. So first off, I'd like to shout out myself, which I never do, but seriously, I never do it. So I have been trying to push freaking control for the last little bit, and it's unclear. So it's definitely not me, because I was playing Weavers, and Weavers is not a control list. So I'm not serving up my own or eating my own sauce, right? So it's not me, but like, whether it's natural or by virtue of choices that WotC has imposed on us by virtue of printing cards that enable control archetypes, whatever the reason, people are playing more control, and I think that there's going to be a positive outcome to that, is what I'm saying. So with regard to performance, the other P word, relative to that popularity, so combo had stayed about the same in popularity, but had a slight increase in performance. Aggro had a vastly different performance rate in quarter one. That's a swing of 6 points to the positive.
Yeah.
Now control had a greater quarter four performance than it did in quarter one, and mid-range got a little better.
I mean, control got a lot worse, notably. Still barely underperforming, but dropping 12% is woof. But yeah, still like not terribly underperforming. Everything's doing a reasonable amount of playability. Control's just not like insane like it was in quarter four.
So what I'm looking at, so we're always trying to infer relationships here, and I don't think we'll ever get to this rock, paper, scissors type of environment that people talk about. And I think the main reasons why we would never get to that rock, paper, scissors is because the types of combo decks and the types of aggro and the types of control, there's some variability there into how they execute their game plan. So there is no natural, if every control deck did the same thing, regardless of color or commander or what have you, then sure, we could probably get into a rock, papery, scissory, type of circumstance. But we have fast combo, slow combo, proactive control, reactive control. Aggro is always proactive. Although you could probably put into some, I haven't seen a whole lot of, big red or big aggro style decks, but they do exist. They're out there. And then mid-range has yet to assume a very specific identity. I think people are trying, of these archetypes, mid-range is probably the hardest still after 2 years, the hardest to put a thumb on, like, this is mid-range. So
yeah, mid-range is still short for miscellaneous currently, but
yeah, I mean that's That's a little unfortunate.
It
But
is, but that's kind of where it is.
Mhm.
It's like it's slower than aggro, faster than control. It's mid range.
so so can you or do you infer? So obviously aggro and control not directly swapped in performance, but there's an inference there that the better performance of aggro has not predictably, but has influenced the lower performance of control. Getting back to that rock, paper, scissors analogy that I drew to. What's interesting about that is that aggro was less popular. And I think we've seen that before where the lower in popularity aggro gets, not necessarily directly correlating, but if aggro has a lower popularity, it actually performs better. And I think that's not the first time we've seen that.
Yeah, I believe it is not. And I think if we want to go and look at turns, I think that tells an interesting story for the control win rate specifically.
Yeah, let me scoot this on down to turns is dead center. There we go.
Yeah, because everything got faster again, which is insane.
Ooh, buddy.
To the point of like the format developing in speed and just developing in general. Like we keep getting faster. Maybe we had one meta report where things slowed down.
One. I think it was if I recall, it was at the end of last summer.
Yeah, for the most part, like it has just been getting faster, which is really interesting from the control player's aspect. But like combo being at 7 turn average, that's pretty fast. Because that means they're probably winning faster in a lot of those games. So if you're not presenting interaction, combo's probably winning turn 5, turn 6 on average. Which basically says you have to be able to interact on those turns while still developing your game state, which can limit what you're willing to actually play.
So back to our mid-range and control stands. So with the speed, I'm going to say with the new speed of the format, we all know that it could rebound next quarter. Well, next quarter is going to be interesting because we're going to have a significant lack of games due to transitions in the online meta and what have you. But let's say that this doesn't rebound. Let's say it stays at least steady, right? Or even hovers like from the all to 8.5 or 9, right? Instead of 10. Let's say it still remains faster, just approximately the same speed. So the problem, mid-range, still struggling to find an identity. At what point does mid-range and control become more of an amalgamation where you have some super proactive mid-range where it's almost I'm talking proactive like there's a hard it's difficult to cut it off from being big aggro. Like that's how fast I'm talking proactively, like mid-range. What if that's what it takes? That there's this, aggro, weird, like liminal space of like big aggro, and then that's where proactive mid-range starts. I know we're getting into the weeds, but that's ultimately what mid-range turns into, is this proactive, control-y, like big threats, fast. I don't know what that looks like. There's too many mana rocks.
I think maybe at this point, the question the format is trying to answer for defining mid-range is, are you wanting to, by default, in a vacuum, lean more proactive or more reactive? because that's kind of where we're all over the place in trying to actually define what it does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like generally for most games, most formats, mid-range is like aggressive, but able to play the late game if it has to.
Right.
I think is generally where it ends up landing. And it wants to beat down the control decks is generally like the game plan, which becomes difficult when you have two archetypes that are consistently faster than you. Because we have actual combo decks, which most formats don't have an abundance of in most games. It's usually a legacy format kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting topic and one we've been talking about for years at this point. So
well, I mean, to our credit, I think the way that we started talking about these archetypes and their relationship to one another and how we expected, them to kind of like work themselves out. I almost feel like we were Nostradamus in the way that we were kind of like predicting that, this might, and the archetypes are actually working their way to, because we've always known combo is just going to faster. We've always known that that's been the trend. I think we realized early on, I don't want to say always known, that aggro has a weird relationship. At least that's how we painted it like a year ago. Has a weird relationship with the meta and the fact that it's super difficult to nail down exactly what its impact. Does it enable the combo decks to win? Does it prevent the combo decks? Is it stifling control, which would be the natural check to combo? Like aggro has this weird, or we predicted back then that has this weird relationship. We still don't know anything about mid-range. Just the way that it is, and control, I have been pushing the hell out of it. I'll back off. But it could also be said that less aggro has made control less performative, which has had a knock-on effect of not, keeping the combo decks in check. But I'm not here to point fingers. Is any number of ways that could work out.
I just realized when we were talking about control that there's not a single Malcolm list in the meta or off meta at all. So, and I think this is telling.
I know that the general consensus around the community for the last 6-8 months has been anti-Malcolm, from an opponent's standpoint. You would be hard pressed to land and keep an early Malcolm in this environment. So
Malcolm reaches. Let's get in there.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So that's another deck that I've got recently put together. Fast Malcolm decks like Abdel are a known quantity and will really struggle. I personally have been beating this drum for a while about bolting the bird. But also that's been a popular sentiment that's been picked up because let's face it, we've got Arabellas, we've got other 2-drop, commanders that are making impacts, 2 and 3-drop commanders that are making impacts on the meta, and people have learned, not that Weavers is that great of an example, but Weavers has been more prominent in the meta as of late. So whether or not people are actually interacting properly or not, that's one thing, but early interaction exists. So I would suspect that the same type of interaction that thwarts a Malcolm is less likely to thwart a Weaver's because there's a mana advantage there. So, yeah, I posit that that's likely the reason is that ever since the turn 3 that shocked the world and Alcatron's commentary went around the globe, people have wisened up and they bolt the bird. So,
yeah, interacting early with combo pieces.
Who would have thought?
Pretty good, actually, especially when they're pieces like Malcolm and land untappers for Gretchen. Pieces, combo pieces that generate value over the course of the game are good to remove before they generate value over the course of the game.
Yeah. Well, here's a bookworm rationale as to why Malcolm and why Simic combo, fast Simic combo decks have thrived and Malcolm X decks have not. I suspect it's because for Malcolm players, the mulligan, the hand that they keep, is directly related to the speed at which they can deploy that Malcolm and trying to accrue value. That interrupting that game plan is different because the card quality is not the same as a Simic deck. So yes, they can generate some sort of card advantage, but they're not able to generate the mana advantage to recover from a thwarted Malcolm in the same way that a Gretchen or Weaver's deck is deploying a land untapper. They not only are they doing the land untapper, they're also doing the land aura, and through one or the other means, they have the mana to recover. Like say, if your land untapper gets killed, it's like, oh, well, I still got the aura. I'm still generating positive mana. So I think that's the major difference between the two. And where I'm going to break the rule again. And where I would classify the Simic combo decks as being heads and tails above Malcolm, because I mean that game plan is just like, in my mind's eye, just like an Abdel, in the fact that it's like, okay, your interaction point is here. The reason why they kept the hand for Abdel for Malcolm is for those two cards to employ that game plan. So if you interact at that juncture, and if you force them to delay, like tempo, if you tempo them through threat of interaction, Malcolm needs to be deployed early to gain value. A Malcolm on turn 6 does nothing for you. Well,
no, it's still a win con, but it's not generating that extra 3 mana or however much mana it would generate. Right? So that's where I do think Breaches is kind of interesting in the play lines that I prefer for that deck, being turn 2 Rock, turn 3 Breaches, and then turn 4 you can drop Malcolm if you want, but you're getting the swing off of Breaches, and if you drop Malcolm that turn, you're kind of threatening like a hasty Malcolm because you still get that trigger off of Breaches.
Pirates!
So like, I think that's a really interesting line, but that the issue with that play line is that you're pretty much tapping out on turn 4. And if we're seeing combo decks getting this fast, it might not go too well for you to tap it out on turn 4.
Yeah, and in fairness to your point, the only decks that have really performed at all, Malcolm decks that have performed well at all in the last year, largely have been Malcolm Breaches decks, and it's likely due to that specific reason in the recoverability of the game plan between Izzet and Simic. I've played a lot of Simic in the last year, and I've been rewarded faithfully for doing so. So I don't know. I think that's the likely cause. I'm welcome to be wrong. Please argue in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Tell me I'm ugly. Do what you do. All right, so we've got the archetypes and the turns and all of that. Do you have anything else to cover in here?
Not really.
So
fast.
So there's some popularity of each color, performance of each color. Obviously, if you're interested in that sort of thing, look at the report, indulge yourself. I'm not a cop. What you do in the privacy of your own home. So I read it as I was scrolling.
Yeah, I sent a screenshot of it to Bodarnn.
So, in conclusion, 76 more games were recorded in the last quarter than the previous quarter. So we're going to have the benefit of a greater resolution of data, because we have more points. So it would be interesting to retroactively go through each quarter and eliminate the outliers, meaning the ones who had the least amount of data, and then do an aggregate, off of that. I'm always thinking about data analysis and stuff like that. So yeah, Gretchen, back to the main point. Gretchen remained meta. Shocker. Yeah. We covered this before. My tune has changed on the elevation of Gretchen. She has, at this point, in my humble opinion, earned her rightful place as being represented the way she is represented in the data and all of that stuff. Of course, this is a rehashing, basically saying that these particular decks have went from off meta to meta. These particular decks have moved from meta to off meta. And of course, the meta and off meta titles are explained in the appendix at the top. Mid-range's popularity was greater than its expected popularity. Control's popularity was less than its expected popularity. Combo and aggros were the same as their expected. So expected basically what we kind of observed in previous quarters, kind of giving you a miniature trend analysis in that statement there. Getting back to the archetype's performance was within 5% of its expected performance. I know we showed or demonstrated a weird switch in performance between aggro and control, and the fact that it still remained within, overall, the archetypes remained within 5% of their expected performance. It's kind of interesting. Means that somewhere along the way, I'll have to go back and look at this myself. Somewhere along the way, either last quarter, the control bump was an anomaly and out of expectation. That'd be an interesting case study to go back and see why. Probably Hollow Marauder.
Yeah, more than likely.
So, yeah, looking at the differences in performance, we talked about that ad nauseum, and then the decrease in median winning turn by 2. Not 1, 2. So I think this is probably the highlight of this data set, is the decrease by 2. We talked about this the least, but I think it's probably the most notable feature that when observed rightfully and directly will kind of lead you down this path as to discover why. And I think in that discovery of why, those things that you learn should be the things that you take and incorporate into your deck building for next quarter. So, yeah. So I think, we get into color stuff, which once again, you can look at that stuff on your own. Back to the two-person view. All right. That was quarter 1. We're sitting at, as per usual, I told Dallas before this, I was like, we don't necessarily have to go an hour. Guess what? It's an hour and 10 minutes. I'm not one to suggest that we're the best in the business. Actually, if you've made it this far, you deserve a joke at somebody else's expense. Welcome to the #1 data, podcast in Popper Commander. We're the only data focused podcast in cPDH, so naturally we're the first and the last. So,
and the greatest ever. I've done it.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I think that I could stand to have every quarter. Maybe the outputs be a little bit like different, but I appreciate the shakeup that happens between like aggro and control and things of that nature. Combo, to your credit, Combo has been the steadiest of girlfriends ever. There was a couple of quarters where they exceeded. I think we had a couple of quarters where there was like a 31% performance rate by Combo, but by and large, it's been hovering around that 28% performance. And these other archetypes need to get their shit together and figure out what's going on. God bless the people out there still trying to figure out mid-range. We'll get there. Might be two more years.
If Combo's been sitting steady, I think it'd be really scary if the other three were also sitting steady, right? Because that means one or two of them would be not doing very good consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if Combo is consistent and the other three are fluctuating, that at least means that everything has a chance to be playable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice,
That's an interesting topic that we should probably delve into at another time. That exact premise right there of, so Combo seems to be, what's the word I'm looking for, or the phrase that I'm looking for? Combo seems to be our bulwark, our stalwart archetype. So, it's usually like never our top two popular. It's usually ranked third or even fourth in popularity. But it's always been our most steady performer, the one you can count on to be, rock solid. What are the factors then that lead to that unsteadiness of, is it because the control decks and the aggro decks are actively competing against each other, like intentionally so? Are they ignoring the Combo folks? Or is it due to that, the fact that they're, I guess what I'm more simply put, is it a target priority issue? Is it a card quality performance issue? Because we get new card stock quarter to quarter, so like, what are these factors? I don't know. This is an interesting thought experiment for a later time. Speaking of a later time, one thing that I did not get to, as we ran over time, is there is a quarterly, Q1 2025 performance report that indicates it's a power rankings specifically for this quarter. Link of that in the description. Explore to your heart's content. Hellkite Furnace is the top 2 performing deck list in the quarter based on the strength of schedule and other algorithm. Ross Berkowitz is the top player for the quarter, with our lovely friend Bobby B. Fine in the second place. So I'm actually on the list at number 11. So Clay did good this quarter. So
you might even see me next quarter.
Yeah.
Maybe. See if I get enough games.
Yeah, and this all of this data being reported once again includes the annual or the year-long cPDH tournament, or league rather, that's being hosted in what town?
Fairfield, Iowa.
So I look forward to seeing, leagues are exciting. They're a brewer's paradise. So I'm interested in seeing what new stuff comes up out of that and makes it into the mainstream, so
at least bring it to some people's eyes, get the online meta to give it a look, right?
Exactly. So yeah, super excited about this. You have any closing thoughts?
No. I got a few other points that I didn't get to as well, but I'll message you and we might have to do another video here soon. We'll see. But we got a lot we missed.
We do. And I think there's an opportunity to kind of get away from like the quarterly focus and maybe do a higher altitude, maybe last 6 months, last year kind of analysis, kind of looking at trends and stuff like that. It's just, there's a lot and we try to synthesize it for you guys, but this is really an afternoon is what this is. So, okay, gotta hit the stop button at some point in time. This is an hour and 15 minutes. Until the next time, go poke Dallas on Discord. Remind him that you're still there and that you love him.
Yeah, send me a message.
Send him a message. So until then, till whenever, my friends. We'll see you in the flip.